Thanks, Cahirlach. Minister, as you know, these amendments 1 to 3 seek to overturn amendments which were submitted by Claire Daly and myself, which were successfully passed at committee and report stage in the Dáil, with the support of Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil and others. Obviously, the bill has gone back to the Seanad again the week before last, and Fianna Fáil senators very strangely voted to overturn our amendments, despite their party's full support for the amendments at both stages in the Dáil. Maybe you must have intimidated them or something. I'm not so sure what happened over there. We really hope that Fianna Fáil TDs will not do a U-turn on this now, and that they don't hide behind this wonderful contraption called confidence in supply. But anyway, the Public Services Card project is a ticking time bomb as far as we're concerned for this government, and I think if by chance that Fianna Fáil were to do a U-turn on it, I think it mightn't look great on their CV when the trouble hits the fan at a later stage. The state is storing up problems for itself by pursuing a data sharing programme that fundamentally contravenes EU law. In the Seanad debate on the 6th of February, the Minister said that our amendments would mean the entire public service would be ground to a halt. I think now you're being a little bit over-dramatic with that one. You described the advice of the Attorney-General in relation to our amendments, and you said the advice of the Attorney-General is that any of these data that are collected are public service identity data. Now, if the AG actually said that, then we'll have to disagree with him. The public service identity is a very particular data set. It is a particular data set that has a specific definition in Section 262 of the Social Welfare Consolidation Act. The public service identity is, as per Section 262, the information specified in subsection 3 of the Act and the person's PPS number. But it is not the case that one's name or date of birth or address or nationality or other data parts that make up the public service identity data set exist only as part of that public service identity data set, which is the logical extension of the AG's argument. He's saying, at least according to yourself, Minister, that data elements that make up the public service identity data set do not, indeed cannot, exist independently of that data set. That's a bit scary. The state does not have a monopoly on these pieces of data. The AG's definition of the public service identity here is bordering on authoritarian. Our amendment says that a specified body, such as the Department of Social Protection or the Passport Office, must provide an alternative to the Public Services Card as a way for a person to verify their identity. But these amendments also go further than this, precisely because the Public Services Card itself is not the problem. It is merely the manifestation in plastic card form of the large-scale data sharing that currently one simply has no other choice but to agree to in order to access basic public services. Therefore, we purposely added the clause in relation to providing an alternative to accessing one's public service identity data set to strengthen the protection for those who do not want to agree to ad hoc sharing of their data and do not want to be coerced into doing so. Our amendments are intended so that a person has an alternative means to verify his or her identity with a particular specified body other than that specified body accessing his or her public service identity data set via the single customer view. If the only way to verify a person's identity in order to access services is via the presentation of a public services card or accessing that person's public service identity via the single customer view, then public services and welfare payments will be denied to those people who do not agree to the sharing of their data. Again, our fundamental point here is that withholding such services in order to coerce consent to such data sharing is not permitted under the GDPR or under previous existing EU law. I appreciate this is administratively difficult for the government and the relevant specified bodies. I appreciate the obvious need to verify people's identities. I appreciate the need for cost-saving measures and the need to increase efficiency. Of course that it's a good thing. But being a good thing doesn't solve the legal conundrum that I have outlined repeatedly during debates about the bill. the public services card may well turn out to be the most expensive administrative error in the history of the state when GDPR fines and compensations are factored in on top of the €60 million we've already spent on the card. I mean, it is a ticking time bomb. Even if only one person in the entire country wants to avail of an alternative to this sharing of their data, legally we have to provide that one person with an alternative. I fail to see how something like a combination of birth certs, utility bills or a passport could not be used to verify identity for those people who do not want to consent to the kind of data sharing we're talking about. Sure, you can get a driver's licence without a public services card. After wasting more than €2 million on its project to make the card mandatory, the Department of Transport clearly realised they had no legal basis to coerce consent to data sharing and abandoned the project. The Government and your Department in particular, Minister, are engineering a situation where access to a person's public service identity data set is the exclusive way to verify one's identity. But there are clearly other options that don't require consent to ad hoc data sharing, and there are various public bodies already using those alternatives. Public bodies have been using the alternative for decades.